Welcome to tonight's story, the entire story of the Mongol Empire. Boring history for sleep. Here on Mythoria, we drift together into the quiet past, where history becomes a soft whisper guiding you toward rest. Imagine the endless grasslands of the steppe, wide and silent beneath an eternal sky. A place where wind carries the breath of centuries and where the journey of a young boy named Temujin would one day shape empires. The tale is vast, filled with battles and roads, but told slowly, it becomes a gentle rhythm. Not of conquest, but of connection, of how a restless horizon gave rise to one of the greatest stories the world has known. Let your mind loosen, as though carried by the sound of distant hooves fading into the night. The world outside grows still, and within this stillness, the story waits for you. Now, let us begin. The entire story of the Mongol Empire. The entire story of the Mongol Empire. The endless steppe. You begin on the wide grasslands where the horizon feels like forever. The wind moves like a restless song, and you sense how this land shapes its people. Horses graze, yurts stand low against the sky, and every sound carries in the silence. Here, life is both harsh and free. The story begins not with walls or towers, but with silence. You are standing in a place where the earth stretches outward without end, where the horizon is not a line but a dream. The steppe, that vast ocean of grass, is both cradle and crucible. Here, the wind becomes a companion, whispering endlessly across the plains, carrying with it the voices of ancestors and the sighs of tomorrow. You feel it brush against your face like a gentle reminder that time moves on, yet nothing truly changes. This land is harsh, yet it nurtures. Winters bite with an unforgiving cold, summers blaze with an open fire, and yet people endure. Families live within circular tents, yurts of felt and wood, low against the horizon as if bowing to the vast sky. These homes can be packed in minutes, loaded onto carts, and carried to the next pasture. Everything about life here bends to the rhythm of movement, of following the grass and the herds. To stay still is to starve. To wander is to live. You notice how the horse is not just an animal, but an extension of the body, a second set of lungs, a partner in survival. From the moment a child can walk, they learn to ride. By the time they can speak clearly, they can already command a horse with ease. The steppe and the horse, the rider and the wind, they are threads woven into one fabric. Without one, the other cannot survive. In this endless landscape, speed is safety, and endurance is power. At night, when the sky opens, you see stars brighter than you ever imagined. They blanket the heavens like countless sparks, guiding wanderers across the open land. Families gather around small fires, their voices low, telling stories of ancestors, battles, and spirits of the wind. The flames flicker, painting shadows across the yurts, while outside the grass sways as though listening. These tales do more than entertain. They shape memory. They teach lessons. They remind each listener that survival is not only strength of body, but strength of spirit. But the steppe does not promise peace. Tribes clash over grazing land, over herds, over pride. Honor is carried like a fragile ember, and insults can ignite wars. Yet alliances form as quickly as they break, as though trust itself is as shifting as the seasons. Still, there is resilience here. To live on the steppe is to accept impermanence. One day you hold land, the next you lose it. One day you ride with family, the next you bury them beneath the open sky. The steppe is both home and enemy, both giver and taker. And yet there is a beauty that lingers even in its cruelty. When the sun rises, the grass glitters with frost like tiny shards of glass. When storms roll across the plain, they appear like mountains of cloud, swallowing the horizon whole. When herds of horses thunder by, The ground itself seems to shake with their heartbeat. The land is alive, restless, unending. To stand within it is to understand both insignificance and belonging. You are small, but you are part of something vast. As you breathe in, you sense why this place shapes its people into something different. Patience comes from waiting out storms. Strength comes from surviving hunger. Freedom comes from never being bound to one place. The endless steppe creates souls who are both fierce and fluid, like water taking the shape of any container, like wind filling any silence. From this soil, from this horizon, would rise one of history's most powerful stories. And so, as you drift with these thoughts, you might ask yourself, what kind of leader could emerge from such a place? What kind of heart could be hardened by its trials, yet softened by its quiet skies? Somewhere among these herds, among these scattered tribes, a boy would be born. His name would be Temujin, and his journey would change the world. The rise of Temujin. From hardship and betrayal, a boy named Temujin grows into a leader. His life is stitched with loss, yet each wound deepens his resolve. He gathers loyalty not through fear, but through bonds of trust and survival. Step by step, he becomes Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. From the silence of the steppe, a child is born. His name is Temujin. To many, he is just another boy in a world where life is fragile and uncertain. But the steppe is never gentle with its children, and from the very beginning, his life is shaped by hardship. His father, a tribal leader, is poisoned by rivals when Temujin is still young. With his death, the family loses its protection, its herds, its security. Suddenly, Temujin, his mother, and his siblings are cast adrift, left vulnerable to hunger, cold, and betrayal. Imagine the boy standing in the wind, no longer a son of privilege but a child of survival. Each day is a test. His family scavenges for food, digging roots from the earth, trapping small animals, fighting off starvation. Other tribes ignore them, or worse, exploit them. In this vast land, where strength is respected above all, a weak family has little worth. And yet, within this harshness, something begins to grow in Temujin, a will that refuses to break. He learns early the meaning of loyalty and betrayal. Some who were once allies abandon his family. Others turn to mockery and cruelty. But Temujin watches, listens, and remembers. Each wound becomes a lesson. Each betrayal sharpens his resolve. In the endless horizon of the steppe, he carries an inner fire, a determination that one day he will not simply survive, but command. As he grows, Temujin discovers the value of relationships forged not through fear, but through trust. He gathers a small band of companions, young men who share his hunger, his hardship, his vision. Among them are brothers in arms who would ride with him through countless battles, bound not just by blood, but by choice. He shows them that loyalty is stronger when it is earned. He rewards courage, and he remembers kindness. In a world where power is usually taken, Temujin begins to build it differently, through bonds that cannot easily be broken. One of the earliest of these bonds is with Jamuka, a boyhood friend. They dream together of uniting the tribes, of making the fractured steppe whole. For a time, their friendship is deep, sealed by oaths. Yet the steppe, with its shifting alliances, would later turn them into rivals. This story of brotherhood and betrayal is one of the many threads that weave Temujin's rise. For now, though, the friendship is a source of strength, a glimpse of what unity might one day mean. Temujin also finds love and partnership in Burta, his wife. She is more than a companion. She is an anchor in his turbulent life. Her loyalty and resilience become part of his foundation. Their union is not simply personal. It also forges alliances, weaving together families and tribes. Yet even this bond will be tested as raiders steal her away, and Temujin must risk everything to bring her back. These trials shape him not only as a leader, but as a man, reminding him that strength is hollow without purpose, and power meaningless without those he loves. The road to leadership is not smooth. Temujin faces defeats, betrayals, and captures. At times, his enemies chain him, treat him as little more than a slave. But even in chains, his mind is unbroken. He waits, he watches, and when the chance comes, he escapes, carrying with him not only his freedom, but also a lesson that no cage can contain a spirit fueled by vision. Slowly, with patience and relentless effort, Temujin begins to draw people to him. Families who have suffered under cruel leaders find in him a promise of justice. Warriors who seek honor find in him a leader who rewards loyalty. Even strangers sense in him a rare presence, as though the steppe itself has chosen him to lead. One by one, tribe by tribe, the seeds of an empire begin to gather around a single man. As you listen, you can almost see him, a young man standing against the horizon, his eyes sharp, his heart scarred yet unyielding. He is no longer just Temujin the outcast, the boy of hunger and loss. He is becoming Temujin the leader, a figure who will one day be known by a name whispered with awe across continents. Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. And yet for now, his journey is only beginning. The tribes remain divided, the steppe still fractured by endless rivalries. The dream of unity flickers like a fragile flame in the wind. The question lingers, can one man, born of hardship and betrayal, truly gather the scattered stars of the steppe into a single sky? He forged empire. You watch the tribes unite, once scattered like stars, now orbiting around one center. With discipline, speed, and strategy, the Mongols sweep across vast lands. Each conquest feels like the echo of thunder across the plains. Order is born out of chaos, and law is carried on horseback. The steppe, once fractured, begins to stir. You can imagine the sound, hooves drumming against the earth like thunder, the wind carrying banners of dust across the horizon. At the center of this storm stands Temujin, no longer just a boy of hardship, no longer merely a leader of a few. Now he begins the work of uniting tribes that for centuries had known only rivalry. Where once there was only scattering, now there is gathering. Temujin does not rule by tradition alone. He forges something new. Instead of granting power only to those born into noble families, he raises men of merit, men proven by loyalty and skill. In a world where lineage was law, this decision breaks patterns as old as the grass itself. Warriors who had long lived in shadows now ride under his banner, knowing that courage can lift them higher than bloodlines ever could. This meritocracy, simple yet radical, binds men to him more tightly than fear ever could. As tribes fall into conflict, Temujin offers an alternative, unity under his command and safety in numbers. Those who resist are defeated swiftly, yet those who join are welcomed, their families given protection, their leaders treated with respect. Slowly, the scattered stars of the steppe begin to align. His vision spreads like fire carried by the wind, inevitable, consuming, impossible to ignore. The battles are fierce, yet swift. The Mongol warriors move as if they are part of one body. On horseback, they are unmatched, able to ride for days with little rest, surviving on dried meat and fermented milk, their endurance legendary. Their bows are small yet powerful, able to shoot with deadly accuracy, even while galloping at full speed. Discipline is strict, but it is fair. Punishments are harsh for betrayal, but loyalty is rewarded with generosity. Each victory tightens the web of unity. Each conquest draws more tribes beneath his sky. Temujin also creates a law, the yasa, a code to govern his growing empire. It is not written, but carried in memory, passed down through word and discipline. It binds people together, setting rules for justice, for conduct, for war, and for peace. With the Yasa, he turns chaos into order, weaving law into the fabric of conquest. For a people long accustomed to shifting alliances, this sense of structure becomes both strange and reassuring. You picture the gatherings, hundreds of horsemen encircling their leader, listening to his words carried by the wind. The Kuriltai, the Council of Tribes, becomes a stage where decisions are sealed. When the title of Genghis Khan is finally given to Temujin, it is more than a name. It is a recognition that he is no longer simply a man, but a force, a symbol of unity for all Mongols. Universal ruler, the words echo, and the horizon itself seems to expand. From this unity rises a power that extends beyond the steppe. The Mongols turn their eyes outward, toward lands rich with cities, walls, and treasures unknown. The forged empire, once only a vision, now becomes a reality. Its warriors pour across borders, breaking fortresses that once seemed unbreakable. Armies crumble before the storm of horses, cities fall like stones into rivers. Yet even in conquest, Genghis brings order, protecting merchants, establishing safe routes, encouraging trade that will one day be known as the lifeblood of the Silk Road. Still, this unity is fragile, built on the delicate balance of loyalty, discipline, and vision. The empire is strong, but it depends on the will of its leader, the man who has turned loss into determination, betrayal into loyalty, chaos into law. At night, under the endless stars, Genghis Khan may have wondered, how long can one man's vision hold together the vastness of the world? And you too may wonder, as you drift with these images in your mind, what happens when this storm crosses into lands far beyond the steppe? What becomes of cities and kingdoms when they face not scattered tribes, but a single empire forged in fire and wind? The Silk Roads and beyond. The empire stretches like a living bridge, linking east and west. You imagine caravans moving under watchful eyes, carrying silk, spices, and stories. The Pax Mongolica opens paths once broken, and across these routes, ideas, religions, and inventions drift like seeds in the wind. The empire stretches outward like a bridge of wind and dust. From the wide steppes of Mongolia, riders carry the power of Genghis Khan across mountains, deserts, and rivers. The drums of hooves no longer echo only within Asia's heartland. They move westward and eastward, north and south, until the world feels smaller, connected by the thunder of horses. You imagine the caravans moving slowly, fragile lines of camels and merchants weaving across the Silk Road. Before the Mongols, this path was broken, dangerous, scattered with raiders and warring states. But under Genghis Khan and his heirs, these roads become secure. Soldiers patrol them, posts are built, and the empire itself becomes a shield for those who travel. The result is something rare in history, a peace born not from gentle hands, but from iron discipline. Historians would later call it the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. With peace comes exchange. Goods move freely, carried in wagons, sacks, and baskets. Silk from China glimmers in markets of the Middle East. Spices from India drift like incense through the bazaars of Samarkand. Silver and glass from Europe find their way eastward, reflecting sunlight in distant lands. Paper, once fragile and local, now carries words across continents. And along with goods, ideas flow, religions spread, inventions travel, knowledge finds new homes. It is as though the empire is not only forging paths for armies, but also for thoughts and dreams. You see Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant, traveling these routes, his eyes wide at the wonders of the Yuan dynasty in China. You see Persian scholars carrying mathematics and astronomy to new lands. You hear the echoes of Buddhist monks, Muslim traders, Christian priests, each voice carried along the same road, passing through the same stations, protected by the same law. The steppe, once so far away, now touches the lives of countless people across continents. But this peace is not without cost. Behind it lies conquest, blood and fear. Cities that resisted were burned, their populations scattered or destroyed. The Silk Road thrives because armies made examples of those who opposed. The safety of merchants is born from the terror instilled in empires that dared to defy the Khan. The beauty of exchange is entwined with the shadow of destruction. It is a paradox, a world more connected, yet connected by force. The Mongols also bring with them systems of communication. Relays of horses, stationed across the empire, carry messages with astonishing speed. A letter can cross thousands of kilometers faster than ever before. This network, called the Yam, makes the empire pulse like a living body, each station a heartbeat, each rider a vein. Through it, orders flow outward and news flows inward, keeping the empire whole. It is the nervous system of a giant stretching across continents. As night falls on these vast roads, you can picture the stars above, the same stars seen by merchants, warriors, and scholars alike. Beneath them, fires flicker at campsites where strangers share meals, tell stories, and exchange languages. The Silk Roads, under Mongol rule, become not just trade routes, but pathways of human connection. The empire, in its strange way, allows people to see that the world is larger than their villages, yet smaller than they ever imagined. Still, questions linger like shadows. How long can such vastness be held together by human will? What happens when the heirs of Genghis Khan, each ruling their own part of the empire, begin to drift apart? For now, the roads are alive, and the world is linked as never before. But empires, like caravans, must eventually rest. And as you close your eyes, you might wonder, is the gift of the Mongols their power of destruction or their power of connection? What remains when the thunder of hooves grows quiet, but the roads they opened remain? The fractured legacy. After Genghis, the empire splits, each khanate a shard of the great whole. The Golden Horde, the Yuan dynasty, the Ilkhanate, all rise with power, yet wrestle with division. Unity fades, but influence lingers, reshaping kingdoms and cultures across continents. Every story of power carries within it the seed of division. When Genghis Khan dies in 1227, the world feels the tremor of his absence. The empire he built is vast, stretching farther than any had before, but even the strongest bow eventually loosens its string. His sons and grandsons inherit the dream, yet they also inherit the challenge, how to rule a world too large for any single hand. The empire begins to divide, not in spirit at first, but in geography. 4 great khanates emerge, each like a fragment of a shattered star, glowing with its own brilliance. To the west rises the Golden Horde, spreading across the plains of Russia and Eastern Europe, its riders casting shadows over cities like Kiev and Moscow. To the south, the Ilkhanate takes root in Persia, blending Mongol strength with Persian culture. In Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate holds the heart of the Silk Roads, balancing between east and west, and in the east, Kublai Khan builds the Yuan dynasty, ruling China from his seat in Beijing, bringing the steppe into the heart of ancient civilization. At first, these khanates still bow to the idea of unity, recognizing the great Khan as a symbolic leader. But distance is powerful, and ambition even more so. Brothers and cousins quarrel, rival heirs stake claims, and slowly the fabric begins to fray. Where once there was one empire, now there are many, each shaped by its own landscape, its own people, its own ambitions. Yet even in division, the Mongol influence continues. In Persia, Mongol rulers adopt Islam, blending steppe traditions with the wisdom of scholars and poets. In China, Kublai Khan welcomes foreign merchants, scientists, and travelers, making his court a crossroads of the world. In Russia, Mongol tribute reshapes the future of its princes, teaching them both submission and survival. Across every land touched by the Mongols, the legacy remains, not just in conquest, but in the structures, the systems, the connections left behind. Still, the cost of division becomes clear. Without the unity of one hand, rival khanates begin to fight one another. Battles erupt between cousins, and the Silk Roads, once safe, begin to fracture with them. Merchants travel more cautiously, cities tighten their gates, and the peace of the Pax Mongolica begins to fade. The empire, which once felt like an unstoppable tide, now resembles a river splitting into many streams, each flowing in its own direction, losing the force of its original current. You can almost picture it. The steppe once again quiet under the stars, yet the horizon no longer belongs to a single ruler. Instead, it belongs to many, each dreaming of their own glory. The story of Genghis Khan's vision still lingers, but it is scattered now, like ashes carried by the wind. And yet even in this fracturing, the Mongols remain a part of the world's heartbeat. Their postal stations, their trade routes, their echoes of lore continue to shape lives long after their unity is gone. History remembers their ferocity, but also their role as connectors, as builders of pathways across continents. As you reflect on this, you may wonder, is legacy measured by how long power endures, or by the traces it leaves behind? The Mongol Empire no longer stands as one, but its influence spreads across centuries, lingering in cultures, in languages, in the silent lines of maps. And as the empire splinters, you begin to hear the question carried in the wind. What remains of greatness when unity is lost, and all that is left are echoes of a dream, echoes of the steppe? You return in thought to the quiet grasslands where it all began. Empires rise and fall, yet the steppe remains, endless, patient, eternal. The Mongol story becomes a whisper in the wind, reminding you how fragile and how vast human ambition can be. As you drift, you wonder, what dreams ride still across those fields? The steppe remains. Long after empires rise and crumble, after khans live and die, the grass still bends in the wind. It is the same land that cradled Temujin as a boy, the same horizon that echoed with the hooves of armies, the same endless sky that swallowed both victories and defeats. Empires are like storms, loud, fierce, and unforgettable. But storms always pass. The steppe waits, patient and eternal. When the Mongol Empire fractures, its pieces drift into history, yet its influence continues to ripple outward. Cities rebuilt after Mongol sieges still carry the marks of change. New walls, new rulers, new ways of trade. Kingdoms once broken find themselves shaped by what they endured, their politics altered, their ambitions tempered. Even as khanates vanish, their memory lingers in chronicles, in stories, in the whispered fears of future rulers who wonder what it might mean if horsemen from the horizon returned once more. You can picture the echoes of their systems, the relay stations of the Yam, long abandoned, yet remembered as the first nervous system of empire. The trade routes, once guarded by Mongol riders, remain open paths, carrying silk, spices, and stories long after the khans are gone. The legal codes, the diplomacy, the idea that the world could be ruled not by one city or one culture, but by a mobile power stretching across continents. These traces sink into the soil of history, becoming seeds for others to find. And yet, when you close your eyes, it is not the empire you see most clearly, but the steppe itself. The land is quiet now. Herds graze under the sun, children ride ponies across the grass, families sit in yurts, sharing meals beneath the stars. Life returns to rhythm, as though the centuries of conquest were only a passing storm. The earth holds no grudges. It simply waits, offering grass in summer and snow in winter, teaching each generation the same lesson. Nothing lasts, and yet everything returns. For those who walk these lands today, the legacy of Genghis Khan is both a source of pride and a shadow of memory. Statues rise, scholars debate, stories are retold. Some see him as a hero of unity, a man who lifted the Mongols from obscurity into destiny. Others remember the destruction, the fire, the rivers red with blood. Perhaps both are true, for history rarely chooses one voice. It sings in harmony, even when the notes seem to clash. As you drift deeper into this story, you realize that the Mongol Empire is not just a tale of conquest. It is also a meditation on impermanence. What begins in hunger and survival grows into empire, and what grows into empire dissolves back into silence. The grass does not remember the exact names, the horses no longer hear the commands of Khans, but the wind still whispers of what once was. And maybe that is enough. To know that humanity, in all its ambition, leaves traces that shape the world even when the people themselves vanish. To know that power can connect as much as it can destroy. To know that even the greatest of empires cannot outlast the patience of the earth. So you return, in thought, to the endless steppe. You breathe with its rhythm, slow and steady, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The Mongols are gone, but the land remains, timeless and vast. And as you listen to the wind, you hear not the sound of armies, but the quiet echo of dreams. Fragile, fleeting, and yet eternal. And you may ask yourself, as sleep finally takes you, what is remembered more? The empire that conquered the world, or the horizon that endures when all else fades? Whispers, after the storm. And so, the story rests. The Mongol Empire, once thunder across continents, has faded into memory. What remains are not only tales of conquest, but also the quiet threads of connection it left behind. Roads once guarded by riders now carry different travelers. Ideas once scattered now mingle, shaping the world in ways unseen. You return in thought to the steppe, to the endless horizon where it all began. The grass sways as it always has, the stars glimmer as they always will. Empires rise and fall, but the land is eternal, steady, patient. The wind does not remember battles, yet it carries their echoes. It does not keep names, yet it whispers of the dreams of those who lived, loved, and fought beneath its sky. As your breathing slows, you let go of the noise of history, keeping only its rhythm, a reminder that greatness and fragility walk hand in hand. The world is vast, and yet, like the steppe, it is always returning to silence. And now, in this silence, you too may rest.